Hello, my name is George Walden. I'm a 22-year-old journalism master's student looking to pursue a career within sports journalism. As an avid fan of combat sports, in particular MMA, covering this new, exciting and fast-growing sport as a journalist would be my ideal career and a way to merge my passions into a profession. So I decided to do some research into the field of sports journalism, find out more about its history, evolution and paths to entry to provide me with the tools and information to best achieve this goal. Throughout this presentation, I will outline the information I've found and use this to detail my next steps post-graduation. Throughout its history, sports journalism has not only represented how sports are reported, but has also had a far-reaching effect on the entirety of sport. When sports journalists first began to distinguish themselves from other newspaper writers in the early 1900s, the coverage of cricket in the UK was an essential part of this emergence. New detailed and expressive writing on cricket was produced by writers such as Neville Cardus of the Manchester Guardian, and gave readers an insight they'd never before seen. Cardus was described as the first sports writer to not only share what he saw, but what he felt. These early columns elevated sports writing above its mundane past, and paved the way for sports journalists to enter a new, exciting space. As more media gave coverage to certain sports, interest in those sports grew. As interest in sports grew, the demand for media content about them also did. The growth of sports media and sport itself was intertwined, which is a fact that remains true today. This became particularly apparent when the television began to make its mark on the industry. The change that the television could bring upon sport was felt early into its emergence. For example, in 1958, the Golf PGA Championship was switched from match play to stroke play in response to TV executives wanting more players in camera for the deciding round. In England, as the attendance to cricket matches was dropping, a one-day competition was introduced in hopes this would pull a high television audience. This was also likely influenced by pressure from big money media tycoons such as Kerry Packer. He founded the World Series Cricket with the new superset format, accommodating for a television audience. It could be argued that the defining moment of this relationship between sport and media was in 1991 when Sky Sports was founded and they introduced 24/7 round-the-clock sports news coverage. This transformed the way sports fans received their news, unrecognisable to that of a century ago. The economic power of broadcasters such as Sky enabled them to disrupt the sports industry and the way sports were presented. A year after Sky Sports was born, they made an unprecedented £304 million bid to air the first season of the Premier League. Before this, football matches were screened on TV just a few times a year, with the FA Cup final and a small number of league matches being given the go-ahead to be broadcast. 2 years before the introduction of Sky Sports, just 35.5 live matches were televised on ITV and the BBC. Compare that to the over 13,000 hours of coverage per year in recent years on Sky Sports, it's clear to see the dramatic effect this broadcaster had on the sport of football. Sky Sports gave fans a whole new way to watch football, and this injection of money enabled the Premier League to become a global phenomenon and an economic superpower. It is now the most popular and lucrative football league in the world. This is not the only instance where a broadcaster has grown a sport's popularity and economic value tremendously. When BT Sports launched in 2013, one of its first announced partners was the UFC, the flagship MMA promotion, giving the broadcaster exclusive rights to all their events. The UFC had yet to sign rights to an exclusive broadcaster in the UK, and the deal almost validated MMA as a real sport within the country. With future superstars such as Conor McGregor emerging in the sport at the time, BT Sport could likely see the opportunity for mass appeal of the sport in the future. Being their exclusive broadcaster would give them a great edge above competition. Here's UFC President Dana White discussing a BT Sport deal after it was first announced, explaining how monumental the deal was for MMA in Britain.
Been working so hard on this deal in the UK, and it's finally coming together now. This whole thing's coming together. Our plan is coming together out there, and yeah, now that we got Virgin, and we're going to be doing a lot more fights out in the UK. It's going to change the landscape of everything out there, and all the people that are, there's still people that are complaining out there. Well, we got to pay for BT. Welcome to the rest of the world, UK. The United States has to pay for fights too. I mean, that's the way this thing works. The difference in television deals is you guys had this channel that we were on before where programming was on at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Now with this new BT deal, these guys are they invested in the sport, they invested in this brand. They're going to be pumping out tons of amazing content on that channel. It's going to be so much better for you guys in the UK.
Something Dana discusses here is the fact that UK fans will no longer have to stay up until the early hours of the morning to receive UFC content from BT Sport, which they would normally have to do when watching on an American-based broadcaster. BT Sport tailored UFC content for fans on a UK time zone, which had never been done before in the sport. As Dana said, this completely changed the landscape of MMA in the UK, as countless more eyes were drawn to promotion from the UFC, and thereby much more likely to stay up for events taking place in America, and particularly the increasing number of events taking place in the UK. BT would create in-depth documentaries into the lives of British fighters competing in the UFC as a main strategy of promotion. Successful British fighters such as Darren Till would be used as poster boys for the UFC in the country, elevating the company and sports prominence in the country. This total coverage approach to promotion opens up more avenues for a sports journalist. Rather than the traditional commentary reaction mode of sports journalism, journalists in this space would have the opportunity to delve into more personal exploration of MMA fighters through means of documentaries or detailed articles. This opens up the opportunity to use an array of journalistic skills other than just pure knowledge of the sport. This Google Trend graph illustrates the popularity of the term UFC in the UK. It's clear to see here how the BT Sport deal in 2013 affected the company's popularity and prominence in the country. Something that's also important to note here is that in the year 2012, Facebook purchased Instagram, and the popularity of the platform increased massively. Later in this presentation, I'll explain as to why this has such a dramatic effect on the UFC's notoriety, but both of these events were huge landmarks in making the UFC as successful as it is today, both in the UK and worldwide. In 2020, the BBC signed a 3-year deal with Bellator, the UFC's main competitor. Perhaps a little late to the party, but this deal shows the BBC's way of keeping up with BT in terms of being active in the sport of MMA. The deal which the BBC signed with Bellator saw them air their fights on the, up until very recently, online-only channel of BBC 3. This would only be viewed on BBC iPlayer. Something evident in my research is a difference in the way legacy media before the internet and new media promote and value the sport of MMA. When talk of a mega fight between MMA superstar Conor McGregor and boxer Floyd Mayweather began in January 2017, that month alone Joe, a digital publisher, ran 10 stories about McGregor, while the far greater resource BBC and Daily Telegraph both ran just 2. Another media company, Lad Bible, which rarely covers sport at all, ran 6. Legacy media companies such as the BBC tend to cover all major sporting events, which means they can be overstretched. This opens up the opportunity for new media and freelance journalists to write about more niche sports such as MMA. MMA in particular is a sport that has blossomed in the age of the internet and social media. In the age of 10-15 second videos, not many sports can capture your attention as fast and easily as MMA. While a clip of a golf shot or a wicket in cricket may require some understanding of the sport, a 13-second knockout is understood, intriguing and likely to be impressive to many. Clips like these rack up millions of views on social media and are shared all over the world through platforms such as Instagram. MMA is now one of the most popular and fastest growing sports in the world, having only started just only 25 years ago with a small cult following, social media being a massive reason for this explosion of popularity. YouTube channels such as The Weasel are a great example of how freelance journalists have been able to capitalise on this space of a niche sport left primarily uncovered by the traditional legacy news outlet. He not only runs a YouTube page, but also live tweets events and runs an Instagram MMA news page. Like many other sports, a lot of MMA journalism is conducted by former fighters or people already established in the sport, coaches for example. The Weasel is not either of these. However, with 284,000 subscribers on YouTube as an MMA analyst, he is a great example of how a freelancer can enter the space as a newcomer and grow to achieve success. I managed to message him on Twitter to ask for advice for an up-and-coming MMA journalist. His overall message was to have passion and originality to achieve growth. Analysing my research into this industry, I've identified several options for me to begin establishing myself as an MMA journalist. One opportunity which stood out to me would be to create a documentary on a local lower level fighter. I have previous experience making documentary films during my undergraduate studies, and I also have some connections with people who train and fight in MMA. Creating this film and promoting it using some of the journalistic promotional skills I've learned through this multimedia course, I could raise my profile and perhaps catch the eye of a new media employer. Another option is to apply directly to a new media company, perhaps as an intern. After some searching online, I found this application to Keep Fit London as an MMA writer. While I process my application here, I'll also keep my eye out for other potential employment options. Something I can start doing right away is to live tweet MMA events. Live tweeting is something I'm new to, but an ever-growing tool in the world of online journalism. I can use these live tweets to build up my portfolio of sports journalism content, further advertising myself to potential employers. Overall, I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I've provided you with some insight into the sports journalism industry, particularly within the MMA field, and you can see what my next steps moving forward are. Thanks for watching.